Created by Player First Games, Multiversus is a free-to-play platform fighting game featuring some of the most iconic characters from the enormous library of Warner Bros. Kinda like Nintendo's Super Smash Bros. Having Batman, Shaggy, Bugs Bunny and more beating each other is what caught many gamers' attention in the first place. On the beta release, it had a record of 20 million users at launch, surpassing most fighting games back then. However, there were problems between the beta and relaunch days that negatively affected the game, and the developers noticed that. With all the fixes that they tried via updates, it demonstrates that they want to make the product as great as they can, even if they have to stick with this live service dilemma. Of course, not every problem has been solved. They need their time to adjust it more and have saved the most important stuff one by one. There are things that I wanted to make it clear. I'm making this video to show the biggest issues this game currently has so the developers can see it just in case. A constructive analysis will be a lot more helpful than, antagonizing against it for the sake of looking edgy. I'll also want to mention that I will use my critique from the viewpoint of a newcomer. That's because I didn't have the open beta back then. Though with 2 points, I'm going to use it as an example. And I'm going to use footage from Season 1 to Season 2 to give a better context, along with some from other players if necessary. With that being said, let's save the multiverse by showing you the 7 problems of Multiversus that need to be fixed. Number 7. For a live service game like Multiversus, it is normal to have a section where you can see missions. Missions that give either Battle Pass XP or Event XP. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary. Complete some of them and wait till the next day for more. If you ignore the hiccups. Let's see the daily missions. Some days there are like 10 missions in a day, which I thought would be a common occurrence. But then on other days, there are like 5 or even 2. It is honestly irritating when this happens because those missions help the Battle Pass progress and feel the boost their bar right there. Event missions felt mishandled too. There's like a big mess amount of missions there. That wouldn't be so questionable if not for those appearing just once per event. Yes, you heard that right. Finishing all missions and won't come back for more. Even though it says that it can be refreshed. So, grinding is the other way to fill those bars? Sure, it's nice that you can earn those by playing the game, but I don't know. With the limited amount of missions, doesn't it feel that the game is asking the player to spend too much time grinding matches? Come on, this feels unbalanced. How about making the daily missions more consistent while refreshing it, and maybe the event missions refreshed like they did with Season 1 rather than making a pile of mess that won't come with more. Or maybe give the event more time to catch up. And one last thing. Make the final event reward 3 event currency as opposed to 1. Sure, it's a better reward than the final event rewards from Season 1, but having just 1 event currency after that grind still feels a bit underwhelming. Number 6. Let's be honest. A game needs more than its main selling point to justify a longer replayability. A variety of things to do like modes, quests, collectibles, quality of life features, etc. will help the player invest in the game for a longer time. Multiversus is being criticized for lacking that, as the devs added more ways to play the game. They will likely add more features to the game, so let's check on what to add. The beta had CDQ and arcade modes. CDQ is pretty much as the title indicates, played like free for all but with a lot of wacky stuff happening during the match, appealing to the casual audience. Arcade mode is where the player fights against random computer controlled rivals in a set of matches to the end. An easy way to get familiar with the game. We can give the devs more mode ideas to make the game fresh. They can break the minigames from Rift mode like break the targets, golf, volleyball, tank shooter and more into a separate mode. There, you can play those from the easiest to the hardest difficulty. It will shape those more than just an exclusive thing to the side modes. Having their own takes on All-Star mode, Mob Smash, and Tourney will be interesting additions. And they can think of new features for the game. Maybe they can break a feature where you can customize a colored palette for one character each. It takes time to program a new mode or feature for a game, so we expect the remaining beta modes to be added before the rest of them. Hopefully they come polish. Number 5. Rift mode in Season 1 was being criticized for grinding a lot of players. With the slow progression of the levels of gems, power-ups in the mode, and the repetitionist caused by the Agent Smith event, which requires beating all 30 bosses in the difficulty nodes available to fully complete it. Season 2 toned this down by making it shorter and simpler. There's gonna be only 4 raids in this season as opposed to 8. The gym's level is faster to increase. And they throw the idea of locking characters behind Rift events. They now made this type of event, which requires finishing objectives in one specific difficulty on the Rift, and those can be completed in a day. Oh, and what about the themed cosmetics requirements? It got easier thanks to the event shop. You probably bought one of those. These changes were made to be a lot less painful to get through, all for the better. But there are 2 problems, one that still remains, and the other that concern us. Completing a whole Rift session isn't a chore for the first time. You can have a good time seeing how the devs handle it. But other than the minigames, the notes aren't impressive either. Those feel like a longer version of arcade mode with mutations, not much else. And once you finish the sessions, you won't play those again, unless an event needs it. However, with Season 2 now limiting having 2 available difficulties in each section, I guess 2 times isn't inferno at this point. They need more uniqueness to stand out nonetheless. Well, now the bigger concern. If you ask any player that experienced the Season 1 PvE, they will mention that at one point you will have the painful discovery of the stupid higher difficulty, more specifically the insane and loony ones.
No fair using a gadget! Match point! Match point!
Strangely, the difficulty in those 2 are not consistent. With enough experience, at times the levels are a bit easy, others a fair challenge, and others feel so ridiculously hard that they become difficulty spikes. The latter was caused by how little you damage the enemy, but the aggressive CPU? Completely broken! 2v2 made this even worse. The ally CPU has the same stats as your gem level and is being thrown easily, leaving both opponents coming for you savagely. Unless you're lucky to have level enough gems for loony mode, or decide to shake any guy to help you, don't be surprised to receive a lot of damage without dying there. I'll remind you, a lot of players have tried to participate on the Season 1 Rift event to get as many rewards as they can, beating 20 difficulty nodes to get Agent Smith early, and 30 to get that exclusive skin. Now you understand why Season 2 decided to replace that with a simpler and quicker event. If the difficulty is addressed already, maybe add more flavors to the notes. Number 4. Where do I begin? At first, This currency seems easy to get with no problem whatsoever. But the second day you log in, you will completely understand that this is one of the things people accuse the game for being stingy with the players in the greedy way. Okay, let's calm down for a second, okay? The fighter currency is the new currency in the relaunch. It's designed to unlock characters in the game. You can get those by leveling up both your account and fighter, Rift mode gameplay, missions, battle passes, and events. However, it got to a point that the game doesn't offer you enough options to earn those. Tutorial missions only have those. Leveling up your account or character becomes slower and those are that much. The battle pass has 3,000 if you bought the premium one, and the events and Rift missions don't offer that much. Sure, having those by getting toast from another player helps a little bit more, but compared to the BPXP, which got updated to also gain those via PvP and Rift mode, is an irritating one to get through. What makes this more frustrating is that the price of the fighters are between 3,000 to 6,000. That amount is going to take like a week or so. Oh, and the 6,000 ones will be reduced by half. And no, they won't return half of the currency you spent on that character. Okay, there's not much to do to get fighter currency enough daily. Guess that you had to purchase premiums with real life money. I don't know why. The coins from the beta can be obtained via gameplay too. And consider how much the beta was criticized for being stingy to players with that aspect, that's not a good thing. To be fair, it becomes less annoying with the event shops. You need to have one event currency to get that character available. To get that currency, you need to beat the event, in which Season 2 made it a lot faster by giving event XP by playing the game in any form. But the options are limited, and I already explained its flaws on number 7, so maybe make a code where players can gain fighter currency by playing PvP modes, calculated with how the player performs. Because this, well, rivals 2 indirectly dissing you, I think you should see that coming. Number 3. Okay, now let's talk about some of the more problematic aspects of the game. The gameplay itself can be engaging and fun, with some interesting aspects of the moveset designed for each character. But from a critical viewpoint, it is flawed for one reason. If you're thinking about the speed, well, no. Of course, it is not the fastest compared to other platform fighting games I played, but it's not the most unplayable either. There's something that is much worse than the speed itself. Yeah. That hit me when I executed that air down special, hitting in an area that is not supposed to get hit by. After that discovery, I also noticed more examples of this problem with different characters. If the character is too near to its opponent, chances are that you will still get hit by the attack. Oh wait, even attempting to get away, you still might get hit by the attack. At least the speed doesn't unintentionally give your opponent an advantage. Like, look at those!
That is not the end.
I know working on the data behind these characters is not easy, but it doesn't take a competitive expert to realize that. Number 2. Out of all the problems in this list, this one doesn't involve the game quality, but will hurt the game in another way. Back in the old times, gaming leaks weren't so common. The internet was in its baby steps, and people weren't as invested as in later years. But now that the internet has become important in our lives since the 2010s, gaming leaks have become nothing more than a plague. Leaking something that showcases a history of how a game is developed should not be compared to leaking content that isn't supposed to be revealed just yet. That completely ruined the magic of official reveals for many games. The Super Smash Bros. Series has suffered a lot from those. From Brawl to Ultimate, almost every single content, including newcomers, were leaked against the depths well. And the fake rumors spreading like wildfire did not make things any better. It got so bad that Sakurai made sure that he stopped doing cutscenes because the leaks ruined the support that they were holding in such space emissary. Sadly, Multiversus is also a victim of leaks. Before the game was announced, there were already leaks and rumors of a Warner Bros. Smash-like game, which accompanied this image. That image turned out to be real since all those characters are in, minus Gandalf. It's very likely that copyright issues made his inclusion difficult, but we don't have a confirmation just yet. That leak is where the can of worms begins. Belmont didn't even get her proper trailer reveal as future characters did. That's because the bets have no choice but to reveal her way earlier in response to a leak. But little did they know that when the open beta came, if that doesn't sound a disservice to both the devs and the players, I don't know what to tell you. And of course, where the relaunch came, each time the game receives a big update, mid-patch or new season, the leaks are so legit that makes the Borderman leaks look like the Loch Ness Monster hordes. For starters, many words of progress were discovered from the data. There's a lot between nearly finished work and stuff that just started. Stuff like the mechas and cyber suits for Rick and Morty, the Justice League animated skin for Joker, and Samurai Jack and Beetlejuice, all of which are added in Season 2, were found in the code before they were revealed. And that's not all the content that was leaked during Season 1. But what about the leaked stuff during Season 2? It's even more absurd. The stuff leaked this time now shows progress with most of them nearing incompletion. I'm not going to tell you which ones got showcased, because I don't want to ruin the surprise. At this point on, the leaks will become worse for the devs, which might lead to them making unwanted compromises. What can the devs or Warner Bros. Games do with this? Putting the leakers to jail for data mining stuff? No, they need to contract a team to make sure nothing gets leaked. That will stop the leaks effectively. Okay, since they aren't generous with the fire currency, I'll spoil a legitimate leak that Warner Bros. Tried to take it down but failed. I'm sorry, but I think you deserve it for that dumb decision. 3, 2, 1, test 1. At the live stream. Someone forgot to remove that.
Negotiation to get us in one place. This is how
number 1. With everything we covered, who is sitting at the number 1 spot? What can be more problematic than the ridiculous Rift difficulty or the scarce fighter currency? I'm very confident that everyone will agree with me that this is the worst part no matter where you go. One of the obvious problems with live service games is that to keep the game alive, they need the players to keep the service floating. Otherwise, it will be shut down all the service, making the game unplayable. Recently, many live service games were shut down since they couldn't maintain a stable player base, for varied reasons that led people to quit. So what could be a bigger killer for an online game like Multiversus? I'll tell you how. Let's say that one day you want to play against other players for any reason. You start a match and you are having a good time with it, and you want to play it over and over again. And then this happens. Okay, this doesn't happen to me all the time. There are times that I played against other players with no problem whatsoever. But when it happens, dear lord! I'm not sure how bad the netcode was from the open beta or Smash Ultimate, so I can't decide which one is worse. But Christ, I dread it to happen! Especially in 2v2 and free-to-play modes. I suppose that they got new players from other regions of the world. They got a Japan release for the re-release, and at one point they stated that they had to work with the European servers. So what happened exactly? Having a luck that you can't control where you can see? Getting kicked out that counts as a defeat? Or worse, a crash during your match? Incredibly horrendous. Combine that along with the potential disruptions with rank, friendship, crossplay, and online tournaments. It's going to drive away as many players as possible if they don't fix this sooner. This can be also attributed to the decision on changing the engine. When it happens, it requires an enormous amount of work. The game will benefit a lot if they delay the release date. With that, they could avoid some of the problems it has, and this won't be so infuriating.
The energy flow rushed them just this morning. Let's fight dirty.
By the goddess. Looks like we're in for quite the fight.
Mojo Jojo has... Oh! What's on this? It's hard for a skinny. prefer leaving mission back.
Between this, the headbutts problems, the rift problems, and the scarce father currency, it's easy to say that the game's future is jeopardized. Unless they fix those in time, the game might be dead sooner, which will be a shame. The developers wanted to show their own take on an underutilized formula that is only known by the giant Nintendo crossover that everyone recognizes. With the good communication, the attention to detail they put here, and how they address feedback adequately, I feel that my only hope for this game relies on player-first games. And I believe if they receive more freedom, they will make an indie-like game that isn't a live service. But it was only a matter of time before Warner Bros. Discovery, a company that gained such an awful image with their practices that they made since 2022, made a devastating shutdown of the game. Let's just hope that with all the community feedback and the later seasons to come, the game can triumph with a long enough life. The company will be split? Oh my, this won't end well for them. Oh no. If you are curious about my progress so far, well, I'll show you. Here's my progress. I have 17 characters, 3 announcer packs, 20 rank outs, 19 profile icons, 10 banners, 46 badges, and at level 32. And I spent $0 on the game. Yup, not a single cent. With how much time? Wow, I'm that unhealthy with this game. Yet, this development hell on this video wasn't all worth it, is it?